Hi there again, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Ask Ed, which we're having a lot of fun with. Thank you for sending in your questions. And Ed Smith is right here, and we're going to get started right away. So, hi, Ed.
It's a nice day.
Well, Ed, we've, as usual, another week's gone by, and we've got another bunch of questions. They're stacking up, and I know what's great is you don't even have to look up the answers. You always know the answers.
I've tried to.
At least
yeah, we'll try our best.
You know what you know anyway.
Yeah, we know it. Yeah, something about it.
That's right. Can you remember and talk a little bit about a mushroom design on lifters back in the 60s and early 70s? He's read an article in an old hot rod magazine. Have you heard anything about a mushroom? Is it a mushroom valve or a mushroom lifter?
Lifters. Actually, it's the 312 Ford lifter.
312
That's what they call it, a mushroom lifter.
Okay.
It was actually a washer, flat washer on a long stem.
Okay.
So the stem might have been a half-inch diameter, but then the washer on it that run on a camshaft was flatter.
Okay.
Looked like a quarter. A quarter with a long half-inch stem welded to it.
Okay.
So it was always a solid lifter.
Okay.
You couldn't get hydraulics on it because they didn't have any stem. But anyways, that mushroom lifter then, that base on it was wider. So now it held the camshaft open longer. So it took a different camshaft. Because when the cam comes up, the lobe touches the bottom of that lifter, and as that engine rotates, it travels all the way across the bottom of that quarter.
Okay. So it does.
That's sucking air in when it's going that.
Okay.
All you're sucking air is the piston's going down and the valve's open. Then all at once it drops over and closes the valve, and now we're into compression.
So does that effectively make the lift longer duration?
Yes, absolutely longer.
All right.
Sometimes. So that would, and you always have to put those lifters in the block first, and you put the camshaft in afterwards.
I see.
Because you can't get the cams. Yeah.
Someone assembling an engine is going to think about that.
Yeah, right. So, and that same thing now, we have a Ford lifter is a wider base than a Chevy lifter. So even so, somebody might take a Chevy 350 motor and bore the lifter bores out and put a Ford lifter in it.
Okay.
And it's a bigger lifter. So therefore, it falls across the camshaft more.
Oh, okay. So that'd be the reason to do it.
Some of that do it, yeah. Technically, I don't know whether that's the same thing now when they get into that roller lifter. Now the lifter, the camshaft is almost really weird looking camshaft because it goes up and goes straight across the top and down the other side. Yeah. So now that roller lifter rolls up here, and all that time it's going across, it's the same thing as when the cam is going across the bottom of that washer.
Okay.
As the lifter travels across that fold comes there. So
okay,
so you get a lot more extreme stuff off a roller camshaft.
Okay, see now here all this time I thought a roller was just supposed to last longer. I didn't realize it had a different type of performance that way.
Oh, totally performance.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've had roller lifters for a long time, probably in the 50s. I think 57, because Chevrolet come out with a V8, of course, in 55.
Yeah.
And I think in maybe 57 or 58, it was really strange.
Yeah.
That I think, trying to think of the name, Racer Brown, I think, had a roller lifter, and it had a long key, like a key stock, quarter-inch key stock, the length of the engine.
Wow.
And they put all the lifters in there in a row, and then put this in the oil galley. This keyway stock. The lifter had a slot, a quarter-inch slot in it.
Okay.
So that held all the lifter roller lifters from turning.
Oh, because you didn't want them to rotate, of course.
Yeah, you can't have them rotate.
Right. Okay.
They put that key, and then they put the galley plug in the end. And the oil galley's where that went.
I see.
Interesting.
Okay. On the camshaft question, someone who likes playing with turbocharged engines, I don't know how much you've done that, but here's the question. Wouldn't a cam or cams with more lift but not much change in duration and a shorter, wider lobe separation angle help a turbocharged application, of course, depending on the engine?
Well, actually, a turbocharged engine turbocharged don't put anything out at low end.
Okay, right.
That's what they call spinning them up.
Yeah.
So now, if you had some people, have got different ways of spinning the turbo up.
Sure.
It's got to get it going. Well, they go 10,000, 20,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
That turbocharger, but it don't put anything out at idle. So now you have to have a pretty low duration camshaft.
Right.
So you do have some power at idle. or right off the line if you're going to drag race.
Yep. Yep.
And then as that comes on, then you have to taper the camshaft down a little bit. You can have longer lift,
Okay.
but not so much duration on a turbocharged engine.
So if it's a shorter lift than duration, you're depending on the turbo to put the
yes,
charge in that way.
yeah, actually a tapered camshaft, a sharp camshaft
Okay.
that keeps the lifters closed and have more compression.
Okay.
So you kind of want that. You wouldn't want a long duration cam. You wouldn't have any horsepower at all.
Ah.
It wouldn't do anything until you got to think about a half mile down the road. Then it starts going wild.
Yeah. Right. Come
So
on, hard.
it's a whole different ball game.
Okay. Different ball game.
It shouldn't. If you don't know something about it, you shouldn't get into it.
Yeah.
Because you'll waste a lot of
You
time.
can mess things up bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, still on cams. Someone's asking. We did this little video about the that Chrysler Flathead cam, and don't rinse out the cast iron, leave the oil in there, don't bother cleaning it and all that. But it was cast iron, and he says, someone named Dan says, when did the cams move away from cast iron, or are there still some cast iron cams?
Well, all the roller cams are steel,
Okay.
and the rest of them are all cast.
Okay. They're still cast today.
Yeah, it's cast today, yeah.
Someone named Joe is asking, so with these new camshaft failures, and I guess it's something more recent, would it help to soak a new camshaft in oil before cam lube and breaking in a new cam?
Yes, it would. We used to Parkerize camshafts, and that would be the company that ground them, would put in an oil bath, hot oil bath, for 24 hours.
Really?
And we would buy the camshafts, and everybody did it. And then they would buy the camshafts that looked almost black. And we knew that these were soaked in the oil.
Okay.
So they sponged up that oil stuff. But right now, today, we end up with camshaft problems, just like he mentioned camshaft problems.
Yes.
And we don't really think the problems in the camshafts.
Okay.
We think the problems in the lifters
Oh.
with today's oil and stuff. And so there's all kinds of different things in the lifters. And I think there's all kinds of questions about that.
Well,
sometimes people tell us that you put too much oil, too much slippery on the camshaft, because the camshaft runs off cycle to the lifter, runs over to one side.
Yep.
So as the camshaft rotates, the lifter rotates.
Okay.
If you got too much oil on it, the lifter may just sit there and just slide.
Oh, instead of rotating.
Because you're picking the lifter up with the push rod, the rocker arm, the valve spring, and the valve.
Right.
It all has to pinch all that up there.
Yep.
And if the lifter just sits there and don't rotate, it'll ruin it in a minute.
Because you're just letting it ride in one spot.
Just sitting in one spot.
Okay.
So now I think it's a lifter problem, and we haven't followed that up yet.
Okay.
So some people say that they kind of roughen up the lifter, so
Really?
it does go around that circle.
Okay.
And maybe not soak up with all this greasy silicone oils and stuff.
Right.
So it does slip and goes around there. Because the old engines used to run them with the valve cover off, and you see the push rod run around.
Yeah.
And the lifter did too, and they never wore out.
Right.
We never had camshaft
And
problems.
you had a nice shiny round top on the lifter,
Yes.
and it was great.
Of course, the lifters now we have seen and get some complaints from people that the lifters, the way they're ground, they actually have a little cup to the surface.
Okay.
Slide them
It's
out.
a little bit of texture kind of.
Yes. And on the end of the lifter, on the edge, there's a little 45-degree angle on every lifter. Really small, so it don't dig into the cam.
Okay.
And we found some lifters brand new that didn't have that angle. So we go through our lifters quite often and maybe pick out the bad ones all the time out of a set of lifters.
Okay, so when you're looking at, and
But
maybe
I don't
we'll
think
find
it's a camshaft problem.
Okay, so we're gonna have to find some old cams and lifters to look at. What are you looking for when you're looking for good and bad on the cams and lifters?
It's the whole thing. Is some books will tell you about lifters.
Okay.
The best lifter Chevrolet ever made was a two-piece lifter.
Okay.
And that's the bottom quarter-inch close to the camshaft. It's a two-piece lifter. That bottom piece is a steel piece.
Okay.
Yeah, not a cast piece or anything. So it's got a steel button on the end of that lifter that rubs against the cam. And I've never seen one of those go flat.
They just stay.
So that's
going.
the best lifter they ever made. And then they go down to all kinds of production, who's made the lifters, like or Millings made the lifters, or whoever made them is secondary to that. One old two-piece lifter
Okay.
And we tear motors apart all the time. It's got 150, 100, 200,000, and the lifters look like brand new.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So,
and what about cams? What do you look for in a cam when you're looking at a good cam or a bad cam?
It's just a matter of the casting. And now camshafts has become another story.
Yeah.
And most of the camshafts years ago used to be made by Millings. It's a big factory in Detroit that made oil pumps and all kinds of things. They made most of the camshafts.
Okay.
And I have a book over here someplace that tells you a purple camshaft for a Chevrolet is a GM part number. It's a Iscadrian part number, and it's a crane cam part. It's all the same part number with the purple on the paint on the cam.
Okay.
And it's all made in Detroit.
Okay.
If the cam costs over 125 bucks, Crane probably made it. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Or Iscadrian made it. But they didn't make the camshaft that we used to sell for $75.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit. The next question someone has is related, going back to the Flathead Fords. You know, we did a video on putting those Chevy distributors in there because of the vacuum advance problems with the Ford Flathead. So this is a follow-up on the Flathead Ford advance. The person writes, so vacuum advance confuses me because don't you have the greatest vacuum at idle? The butterflies are mostly closed on acceleration right up to allowing more airflow, but at a lower vacuum pressure. Because of that, he's wondering how does vacuum advance assist things on that?
Actually, vacuum advance is a little different. It's like with our new Edelbrock carburetors. Now if we put in a Chevrolet, we put that vacuum advance over here on full vacuum and idle. So we unplug the distributor and set it at 10 degrees. Plug it in again, and it would jump up to 27 degrees.
Oh, really?
At idle.
Okay.
But as soon as you accelerate it a little bit, the idle drops to nothing.
Right.
So it goes back to the 10 degrees. If you got in a Ford distributor, it don't work that way.
Okay.
So now we'll put it on Ford on part throttle vacuum. So at Ford it sets at 10 degrees, and idle's fine at 10 degrees.
Okay.
And as you accelerate, the more you accelerate, the more the vacuum, and the more it advances.
Okay.
So there's two different places to
run.
run. Ford on one side, Chevrolet on the other side when you plug it in the carburetor.
Oh.
At the same time, now these Flatheads had no advance at all, mechanically.
Okay.
Only thing it had was vacuum.
I see.
And if vacuum, most of the time we found out the vacuum advance never worked in the first place.
I see. Wasn't
it
very
was a
good.
strange vacuum thing because it was a circle in the distributor, a big washer, and it's vacuum, a little plunger with a leather washer on it, and it wouldn't let that advance until the vacuum pulled it up, and then the distributor would advance.
Okay.
So it was really strange, and if you accelerated real hard, you had no vacuum, and the timing went back to 10 degrees. And on a Chevrolet, normal time, if you want gas mileage, you hook the vacuum advance up. If you don't want it, put a distributor that don't have any vacuum advance, or leave the hose off.
Okay.
And what it does is, when you're going on the road with a Chevrolet and you're not up on the gas, it's full advance, full vacuum, it pumps the timing maybe up to 40.
Wow.
And it cleans all the spark plugs and cleans the top of the piston off and burns all the fuel in the chamber with that time. You're not under power. You're under idle or going downhill.
Yeah. Okay.
So it helps clean the engine up.
Interesting. Wow. Someone, Ninja is one of their names here on this question. It's a kind of a two-part question. First was, does the spring in an 8BA, that's the Flathead Ford, distributor being attached to the cam screw have any adjustability at all? Is there any way to adjust the distributor?
They both got adjustments on them, yeah.
Okay.
Vacuum advance has an adjustment on it. And of course, the timing on the distributor has a little screw in the side. You can run a button up and down and adjust the timing on it.
Okay. Such as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, do you machine and sell distributors, or will an electronic distributor also work on a Flathead?
We would have to machine all the distributors to fit them, and Chevrolet's the one that fits in there.
Okay.
And when I get done playing with this stuff one of these days, then I will sell the distributors probably.
Okay.
A Chevy distributor, and you put a electronic thing or keep the points and condenser.
So yeah, either way, but you'd have to have them set up. So stay tuned, guys. Watch out at Ed Smith's Speed Shop. He might be doing that in the future. So
we need to put some of the distributors in some of the cars and drive them.
Yeah.
and try the drivability, so
Right.
we know what's going on. So
Yeah.
we're trying to fix this so they don't run so hot.
I see.
With a little more timing, I think. And
I know you do your homework. You're not going to sell something unless you've tested it out.
yeah, we're gonna.
Here's another one from our friend down under. He says, "Can you ask Ed Barry if he's used rev kits?"
We've used rev kits all our whole life.
Oh, okay. What is a rev kit? What is
a rev kit's a spring and a plate that goes on top of the lifter.
Okay.
It keeps the cam, the roller cam only, keeps the cam on the camshaft, the lifter on the cam. So that's some of our problems right now. Let me say with the rev kit.
Yeah.
So now you don't have to have a huge valve spring.
Oh,
on
to push
the valve.
it back. Okay.
Yes. So now you're keeping this heavy lifter that weighs quite a bit more than a regular lifter, keeps it on the cam.
Okay.
So maybe it's a fairly light spring. The lifter stays on the cam.
Okay.
Then you can go up to and don't have to put, it's very much a fairly light spring on the valve itself. And still get it to wind 7,500, 8 grand.
Okay, so can you describe a little bit more what a rev kit, what that really looks like?
A rev kit's a whole set of springs.
Okay.
And an aluminum plate. There's holes in it where the push rods go, and all that goes underneath there, under the head, between the head and the lifter.
Okay.
All packaged
It
in
all
there.
fits in there. Okay.
Yeah, the spring sets are on top of the lifter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and otherwise with the light spring, if you didn't have that, I guess you'd have valve float. Is that?
Yes, or if you have to put a huge spring on the valve.
I see. Right.
So that's something that we didn't like to do.
Sure.
It's a good way to stretch the valve and have more parts come apart.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's something. Actually, you're putting maybe a 25% spring on the lifter itself, then you don't have to have maybe a 65% spring on the valve instead of putting a 100% spring on the valve.
Okay, so it even adds up to less tension.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Overall tension is
Which
probably
saves
the same.
horsepower eventually.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Or
It
adds
saves
horsepower.
Broken parts.
Yeah.
It's not so hard on the lifters and push rods and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, it's good for everything.
Everything
involved.
It's all a good deal. Yeah. With the roller cam.
Thank you, Down Under. Thank you for a good question there. We're talking a little bit about the wrist pin is a little off center a lot of times, almost always, not always. And some people like to spin it around the other way so that it's offset the other direction.
Yeah.
And that it gets more power that way.
Well, it just takes the wear off the cylinder wall.
Okay.
Where the piston rubs against the cylinder wall.
All right.
Takes that tension off there a little bit.
Okay.
And then, of course, it's noisier.
Okay.
The pistons put all the arrows in the back of the engine, facing the back. It's going to be a little noisier until you warm it up.
Okay. How does that but it might give you more power?
It's a little bit.
A little bit?
It's not worth messing with.
Okay, and also I guess if you're running a stroker, you're already kind of maxed out on space.
Already maxed that out anyways, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, some of the pistons we talked that once before, that has an oil relief in the bottom of the piston.
Oh, yeah.
That returns that oil off the oil ring. And you want that on the bottom all the time.
Right.
So you don't have to flood that piston with oil.
This person writes in, wanted to know which year did they change over in Flatheads to the insert style bearing? Do you know?
Well, I think relatively it was in the 40s.
In the 40s?
Yeah. 48 probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the 30s, most of those were Babbitt.
Okay.
35, 36, 37.
Okay.
Probably 38, probably some of those.
Yeah.
In the 40, probably 40, somewhere in there, they changed it over. I could look in the book to see look at a rod bearing, and would tell you rod bearings or something, what they start out, what year it started out.
Okay, guys, thanks again for watching. Thanks for your likes and your comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.